Hello students. So as you know that we have already started with a new chapter, chapter 2, and in the previous presentation I have discussed the goals of scientific inquiry, right? In this presentation I will cover steps in conducting scientific inquiry and then certain alternative paradigms of research. Now before moving on to know the steps in conducting scientific research, we must know that in scientific research there are actually two characteristics. Because science is not so defined by what it investigates or as by how it investigates. So the scientific method attempts to study the particular event or phenomenon in an objective, systematic and testable manner. So the very first characteristic is the objectivity. So what is objectivity? It refers to the fact that if two or more persons independently study a particular event, both of them to a great extent should arrive at the same conclusion. Now for example, say if two children count the number of buttons on a TV remote, they should arrive at same conclusion. It is not that one child will count and there are 9 buttons and another will count and there will be only 7 buttons. It is not like that. Okay, so that means there is objectivity if two or more persons, if independently they study, if they count the numbers of a button in this particular example, so they will reach at the same conclusion. Now another example if I have to give you, now see if you and your friend measure the length of a table using the same measuring device, so it is likely that both of you would arrive at the same conclusion about its length. Yes, again here, it is not that you will get a different length of the table and your friend will get a different measure for the length of the table. Okay, so number 2, it is systematic procedure or steps of investigation, which means that scientific research should have predetermined steps to follow. That is why it is regarded as a systematic procedure of investigation. So here only we will get to know what are the steps of a scientific investigation, which includes conceptualization of a problem, collection of data, drawing conclusions, and revising research conclusion and theory. So we will go through these steps in details in the following slides. So here in this slide, you will see that there are these steps in conducting scientific inquiry. So here, basically 4 steps you can see, and if you follow the arrows, you can see that it moves in a, and it creates a circle. Okay, so if you see the first one, the numbers are also given over here. So the first step, it is conceptualizing a problem. In brief, it is also written under it that selecting a topic for study. It is followed by step number 2, that is collecting data. Collecting data where participants are there, methods are there, tools and procedures are there. Followed by this step number 3, it is drawing conclusions where there is use of certain statistical methods. With this, it is followed by step number 4, that is revising research conclusions. That means restating existing hypothesis or formulating revised or a new theory. So again, researchers are something which is always there for some other researchers to again select a topic for study. So if one person has concluded his or her research topic and has gained a theory, the same theory can be somebody else's topic of study. So that is why it goes round. Okay. Now let us try to understand the steps in conducting scientific research one by one in details. So the first step, it is conceptualizing a problem. So basically, the scientific research, it is actually a process. Okay, so it follows certain procedures. So here, the process of scientific research begins when a researcher selects a theme or topic for study. Okay, then the researcher narrows down the focus and develops specific research questions or problems for the study. And this is done on the basis of review of past research, observations, and personal experiences. As I already told you all, that any research, it is done on the basis of certain previous or past facts and figures. And basically, if someone has already done a research, that gives a way for the next person to study. So if you all remember, I have given you an example earlier that a researcher was interested in observing the study habits of students. Now in researching or in studying the study habits of students, the researcher has to define clearly that what does the study habits mean to that particular researcher. Yes, so for this purpose, the researcher may identify different phases of study habits first and then decide whether the researcher is interested in study habits shown in the class or at home. Okay, am I clear? So in psychology, we study a diverse range of problems related to behavior and experiences. And these problems may be related to understanding our own behavior, maybe. For example, how do I feel and behave when I am in a state of joy or grief? How do we reflect on our own experiences and behavior? Why do we forget? Why can't we remember? Okay, then it also involves understanding other individuals' behavior. For example, why is someone always not able to complete his or her work on time? Can the habit of smoking be controlled? Why do some people suffering from chronic illness not take medicines? Okay, then there might be another range of problem which involves group influences on individual behavior. For example, why does Rahul spend more time meeting with people than doing his work? Why does a cyclist perform better when cycling before a group of persons than when cycling alone? Or we can also say, why does a dancer perform better when dancing before a group of persons than when dancing alone? Okay, there is also involvement of group behavior. Group behavior, for example, why does risk-taking behavior increase when people are in a group? And lastly, it also has questions about the organizational level. For example, why are some organizations more successful than others? How can an employer increase the motivation of employees? And the list goes on. Okay, so the list is long and you can add as many number of problems which you like to probe. So these are some of the ranges of problems that might help in conceptualizing a particular theme or topic for study. Okay, so if you are inquisitive, you can write down a number of problems which you may like to probe. So after identification of the problem, the researcher proceeds by developing a tentative and testable statement about the relationship between two variables. And this is regarded as hypothesis. It is very important for you all to know what a hypothesis means. So basically, hypothesis is nothing but a testable and tentative statement in order to identify the problem. Okay, for example, increased amount of reward will lead to betterment in learning. So you might also develop a hypothesis that greater is the amount of time spent by children in viewing violence on television, higher is the degree of aggression displayed by them. So in your research, you shall now try to prove whether the statement is true or false. So basically, in order to study on a particular topic or on a particular theme, you must need a hypothesis. That means a statement in where you have to state that which is the cause and which is the effect, and what does the cause and effect leads to, or whether there is any correlation between the statement. So you have to prove it. So after proving, you have to reach to a conclusion where you can say that whatever you have stated, whatever the hypothesis is stated by you, whether it is true or it is false. Okay. So the second step in scientific research is to collect data. Data collection requires developing a research design, or we can say a blueprint of the entire study. And it requires taking decisions about the following four aspects. So what are the four aspects? Number A, participants in the study. Number B, methods of data collection. Number C, tools to be used in research. And number D, the procedure for data collection. So when we say participants of the study, we means that who are the people that are involved in the study and on whom do we want to conduct the research on. So basically, in order to conduct a research, we need a certain amount of population. So here, the participants of the study are decided depending on the nature of the study. So they could be children, adolescents, college students, teachers, workers, elder people, etc. Point number B, that is method of data collection. When we say that we need to collect the data through certain methods, so the methods of data collection may be selected as observation method, experimental method, correlation method, case study, etc. And number C, tools to be used. When we say tools to be used, so the researcher needs to decide about appropriate tools after deciding then what should be the methods of data collection. So with the tools, the researcher may choose interview schedule, questionnaire, survey, observation schedule, and etc. And lastly, the fourth aspect, it is the procedure for data collection. That is how the tools need to be administered to collect the data, whether it is individual or group. So basically whether the data should be collected through individual person to person, or it will be selected or collected from a large group or a small group. Okay, so this is followed by actual data collection. So basically these are the four very important aspects in order to collect data, which is the participants in the study, very important. The method of data collection, again, one have to know that through what kind of method the data will be collected, what will be the tools to be used, and what will be the procedure for the data collection. That means administration. The third step is drawing conclusions. So in this step, the researcher analyzes the data which has been collected through the use of statistical procedures in order to understand what the data mean. And this can be achieved through graphical representations such as preparation of pie chart, bar diagram, cumulative frequencies, histogram, etc. And by the use of different statistical methods too. So the only purpose of analysis is to verify a hypothesis and draw conclusions accordingly. Now here, depending on the study and accordingly the collection of the data, so the researcher also selects that in which way he or she wants to proceed this conclusion or draw the conclusions and state that whether a hypothesis is true or false. So here the researcher can use any one or two of the graphical representations or any other statistical methods. Am I clear? Now moving on to the fourth step, which is revising research conclusions. So see, we know that the research begins with the hypothesis or a statement which we need to prove whether it is true or false. For example, there exists a relationship between viewing violence on television and aggression among children. So this is suppose our hypothetical statement. So the researcher sees whether the conclusions support his hypothesis or not. So if the conclusions support the hypothesis to be true, so that means the existing hypothesis or theory is confirmed. And if not supported, that means that the researcher will revise or state an alternative hypothesis or theory and again test it based on new data and draw conclusions which may be verified by future researchers. That means following the same step again, starting with the statement of hypothesis. Okay, and then again the steps will be followed one after the another, as in the circle which we have seen in the very beginning of these steps. Yes, you can go through that circle once again, the steps where you will understand. If it is verified, there will be another research, but then if one needs to research again, the researcher have to follow the same steps. Okay, therefore the research is a continuous process. It is a never-ending process actually. Our next topic is alternative paradigms of research. Now see, so far we have come to know that human behavior is predictable. It is caused by internal and external forces, and it can be observed, measured, and controlled. So in order to achieve these goals, the discipline of psychology for larger part of the 20th century restricted itself to the study of overt behavior that could be observed and measured, ignoring on the personal feelings, experiences, and meanings, etc. So basically, of course, we all know that what is an overt behavior. An overt behavior can be seen and observed from outside, and it can also be measured. But what about the covert behavior? What about the internal personal feelings, experiences, and meanings, which is ignored? So in recent years, a method known as interpretive emerged. Okay, so the interpretive method came into scene, which emphasizes on understanding over explanation and prediction. That is, understanding the subjective interpretation of reality. So it emphasizes on how human beings give meaning to events and actions and interpret them as they occur in a particular context. So for example, studying the effect of stress on mental and physical health of an individual or persons experiencing suffering due to external factors, that is, people affected by tsunami, cyclone, earthquake, or internal factors such as prolonged illness. Just realize and just imagine what you will be feeling in that particular situation. So, if you have to face or get stuck in any of these situations, it is obvious that objective measurement is neither possible nor desirable, because everyone interprets reality in her or his own way based on past experiences and context. And therefore, we need to understand the subjective interpretation of reality as well, isn't it? Don't you think so? It is important that we also need to know about the internal feelings of a person so that it becomes easy to understand that how this subjective interpretation of reality is done. So the goal over here is to explore the different aspects of human experiences and behavior without attempting to disturb its natural flow. For example, an explorer does not know what she or he is looking for, how to look for it, and what to expect. Rather, she or he tries to map an uncharted wilderness with little or no prior knowledge of the area, and her or his main task is to record detailed descriptions of what is found in a particular context. Okay, so both scientific and interpretive traditions are concerned with studying behavior and experiences of others. But what about our own personal experiences and behavior? So, as a psychology student, you may ask yourself the question, why am I feeling sad? Many times, you take a pledge that you will control your diet or devote more time to studies. But when it actually comes to eating or studying, you forget this. Yes or no? Do you all agree with me or not? So, you might be wondering why one does not have control over one's behavior. And should psychology not help you in analyzing your own experiences, thought processes, and behavior? I believe it certainly should. So, the psychological inquiry does aim at understanding the self by reflecting on one's own experiences and insights. So, when you hear of the word interpretive, that means you are interpreting your own self. Okay, looking into it yourself. We can also that it is insightful. Okay, am I clear? Please go through the slides once again, and if you don't understand anything, please feel free to ask me. Okay, thank you.